was a rampage of killing, and they would, the Comanches, the Apaches would go across the border. So once the population in Texas got too large, made them uncomfortable, then they wanted the territory back, the land that they had promised them, and that was really the source of the problem. And because once people plant their roots, and that's home,
thank you.
Willing to fight for it.
Through these fields of destruction, baptisms of fire, I've witnessed your suffering as the battle reached high, and though it hurt me so bad.
Welcome to Voices of the Republic. I'm Mike Chisholm. Thank you for joining me today. It's been an interesting week. Lots have been going on throughout our local counties and states and nationally and worldwide. First and foremost, I'd like to say on April 13th at, I believe, Ross Park, there will be a gathering, such as like the Tea Party gathering. It'll be from 1 to 5 o'clock. Everyone's welcome. I suggest you all be there, meet fellow patriots, and let's talk about what's really going on in the world, in our state, in our county, in our town. Also, on Fridays at noon till 1 p.m., sometime it'll last a little longer, sometime it'll even go to 2 o'clock, there's a class called Rules for Radicals, and that's a really good class. Interesting how the opposite mind thinks of how to accomplish certain tasks. That'd be at 150 North Main, and that class is ran by Ron Clayson. Hope to see you guys there. It's very informative, and you'll learn a lot. I'd like to read a quote before I get started. I have several guests with me today. The quote goes as this: "The penalty good men pay for indifference to public affairs is to be ruled by evil men." That was written by Plato a couple thousand years ago, maybe a little longer. I didn't study about how long Plato was doing this, but I love his quotes, and that's the truth. If good men do nothing, evil will reign. And I'm joined here today with some really good men, and we're going to speak about a few topics ranging from North Korea and how serious are they. I spent 13 months on the DMZ, well, not on the DMZ, but in South Korea, of which almost 90 days was on the DMZ. And this is way back in the late 70s. And they were talking about an invasion back then. But technology has changed, and it appears that North Korean, I can't even pronounce his name, has threatened to actually move on to the south and do damage, I guess, and threaten the U.S. We'll be talking about other issues too, but before I get there, I'd like to introduce my guests. I have to my left, Chance White. Thank you for showing up, Chance. Sure. And I have Mike Todhunter.
It's a pleasure.
And to my right, I have Steve Blair. Thank you for showing.
Hi.
Gentlemen, let's talk about North Korea. Like I said earlier, just a second ago, that I spent several months there, and it's basically been the same chatter. A lot of chatter, no action, but it appears something may actually be happening. Anyone want to chime in?
Well, the dictator has withdrawn from the armistice that we had with them. That is no longer in effect according to the North.
And that's another,
Ceasefire.
there you go, that's another thing. People don't realize, you all don't, I'm sure many of you do, but many don't realize the war in North and South Korea never ended. It was a ceasefire. That's still considered a combat zone. A lot of people go, wow, I thought the war ended. No, it was a policing action and the ceasefire, and it's never been other than that. Go, I'm sorry, Steve, I just wanted to put that.
Anyway, that is no longer in effect according to Kim Il-jung, if that's how it's pronounced, I believe.
You did a lot better than I could.
And they have decided that they're going to test another missile any day, and that's been for the past 2 days, any day now. They've been removing personnel from the test zone. They have been rattling bars and cages, and people are taking it a little bit more seriously now than they have in the past.
And didn't our government say, I guess the NSA or whoever's tracking, or the DOD, Department of Defense, that they can't account for several missiles that they had under their watch, and now these missiles are somehow, they can't find
There's
them?
been relocations of a number of different missiles, long range, short range, that have been relocated to different zones. A couple that are pointed directly at Seoul bases, U.S. bases. One that is pointed at an island that name that I can't pronounce right off the top of my head.
I know which island you're talking about, and I can't remember it.
Yeah, and Kim has ordered all the people off that island, otherwise he's going to drop a nuke on it. He said, if they don't, of course, more rattling in the cage, we hope.
They're saying he's more unpredictable than his father.
Quite possibly, but he's a young man, very young man.
Isn't he like 31?
20. He's in his 20s.
Oh, he's in his 20s. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you know, he's got a lot of his generals. They don't have any faith in him, and of course he's trying to get a lot of his staff and the rest of the people to follow him, understand that he means business, and that's the type of situation we're dealing with.
Let me ask, how will it affect us here in the United States? We definitely, guys, can't afford another war.
You know, I got to tell you, I just don't know. To me, the issue is, how do we let ourselves get boxed into these situations? I mean, the World War II ended in 1945, and the Korean War ended in, what was it, either 52 or 53, and we have, I think it's 35,000 troops on the DMZ there as a legacy from that war. South Korea is a modern country, can surely, it has an economy, has got to be multiple times greater than North Korea. It's the home of Samsung, Kia, Hyundai. It's a modern country. And the idea that they can't defend themselves is preposterous. And there's so much sadness about this whole thing, because it's like, how many times have we gone through this exercise of threats and extortion, and we continue to feed the beast by giving in to the extortion. We're going to bomb you, we're going to attack you, or you got to give us stuff so we can feed our people. And then, of course, opportunity costs, we feed their people, and then they can take that money that would have gone towards taking care of their people and put it into their military technology, and it goes on and on. What's really sad about this, and it's almost ironical, is at a time where President Obama talking about nuclear nonproliferation and how his administration has wanted de-emphasize the growth of nuclear technology as at a time where here we are fighting a war in the Middle East, and Afghanistan just got finished in Iraq, finishing up in Afghanistan, fighting in wars we never intend to win, draining the treasury.
And the American lives.
American soldiers dying there, continuing today. You're getting bushwhacked and ambushed at every corner. And we got ourselves in there. And I think it's important as adults to know that these were our choices. These are our choices. And people don't have the capacity to think out of a box and to see ahead. So here we are discussing this idea that we are being threatened by a tin horn dictatorship, but we put ourselves in that spot. If North Korea, I'm just curious, what would be wrong with us leaving? South Korea nuclearizes, Japan nuclearizes. Maybe that's not a good thing, but what we're in now is not a good thing. Iran obviously is going to get the bomb. These are the two of the three axes of evil. And then, of course, if Iran's going to get the bomb, they'll threaten the Middle East. We'll continue to get more extortions. Saudi Arabia will nuclearize. Turkey will nuclearize. No doubt Israel will increase its nuclearization.
Well, that's just
and all
it
of a
right
sudden
now,
we
the
have
United
this arms
States.
scare, this growing of the arms, and is the world a safer place? Meanwhile, we have our major competitor, China, sitting by the wayside, fueling this whole, encouraging all of this misbehavior on the part of North Korea. That's another issue that concerns me. What are we getting out of this relationship with China? They support Iran, they support North Korea, they provided nuclear technology. All of the trade agreements, they have a profound imbalance in trade.
They have the upper hand.
It's a communist government where you don't have individual rights, you have no pluralism, you now have no freedom of speech. They steal our stuff in cyber warfare, all of our commercial interests. They don't respect any agreement. They play to win. And why? Because they loan us money. Well, we got ourselves in that spot.
That's right.
You know, as far as I'm concerned, if we cut off relationships with them today, we could bring those jobs home, reestablish the manufacturing base. All right, so Home Depot, or not Home Depot, Walmart is affected negatively for a short period of time until we can start manufacturing our own. I'd rather pay a little bit more for stuff knowing that I'm employing Americans, that Americans are going to have jobs, they're going to be paying taxes, might actually reduce the workload, get America back to work. I don't think there's any country in the world that is capable of self-sustaining economic activity where we are producing our essential needs as any country but America. As of right now, I don't see anything that we're getting from the Chinese, and it's another kabuki dance.
Yeah.
There you go,
Well, see,
kabuki.
what you said, though, the only problem with that is it makes sense. And that's a no-no. You see, in a democratic society run by a liberal, progressive party, that something that makes sense and would work out for the better, just not happening, bro.
Well, I'm all for free trade, but I think what we need to focus on is fair trade.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't see anything that can't be gained with a bilateral relationship instead of entering into these multilateral relationships, economic relationships that are determined by some bureaucrat or some court in Europe, you know, which is committed to socialism. And when was the last time Europe ever put any enforcement behind any rule or regulation? It's just a jawboning society.
Yeah.
So if you're going to have rules and regulations, they have to be enforced. Well, what's the provision to enforce them? There are none. It's a good faith relationship, and if you don't have good faith, how can you trust the Chinese? It's
Exactly.
a communist government. They
Well,
want
the Chinese, we're borrowing money from the Chinese that we have first sent over to China to buy their products. And then they're coming here and buying our property. And not just the Chinese. I mean, I can't believe the type of laws we have in our country where foreigners can buy land, buy businesses. Go to some other of these foreign countries and you can't do that, period. End of story. American forget, oh, we'll lease some land to you. And speaking about North Korea, or South Korea, when I was there in the late 70s, I guarded a missile silo. So I know they can protect themselves, period. So you're right about that, you know, Kabuki. Great show. Chance?
North Korea's new leader has, as we have been saying, rattling his sword. In this particular instance, he's gone beyond the norm. He's stuck himself way out there on a limb to where if he does not act in some aggressive manner, he's going to lose face.
Yeah.
This is very important to the Asian mind. He can't do this, can't be allowed. Otherwise, no one's going to respect his leadership at all. At the very least, he's going to do something aggressive towards South Korea. The question is, will the U.S. intervene on South Korea's behalf, or will we sit back and watch South Korea react on their own? We're stationed there. You would think that we'd get involved in some respect. Another concern is if he should be even more aggressive. We do have territories, Guam, and we have Hawaii, that are very much susceptible to an attack within the range of their missile system. It's a real threat. You might have noticed that they beefed up the interceptor missile locations that we've had at a time when we were downsizing our military. Now we've increased some of our defense systems. So I believe that our leaders are considering the threat from South Korea a little bit more than just rattling their sabers.
Yes.
Well, that's one thing now I do think that is positive that come out of this, as far as, you know, looking at all the crazy policies that we have in our relations with people, is that now we can, I think it's pretty clear to everybody, even the Obama administration who came into office against the anti-missile system, that we really need to upgrade our anti-missile system, you know. And people used to mock Reagan when Reagan talked about the old Star Wars, remember? Yeah. And to me, in my way of thinking, is that there's no way you can really prevent with a world structure, because if you're going to prevent a country that's determined to nuclearize, you've got to go in there with boots on the ground. And, you know, who wants to do that? I mean, the loss is going to be tremendous. You know, Iran has a powerful army. They're very modern. So what are you going to do? The only thing you can do is to try to neutralize that, especially if they want to weaponize their nuclear energy program, is with an anti-missile system. I mean, again, it's costly, but you know, one nuke, what would be the estimated damage to America if it hit a major city on the West Coast?
Millions.
And of course, here in Idaho, we're in the prevailing wind patterns. Everybody knows that when Mount St. Helens went off, that we ended up with some of the ash and drift. It would be the same way with a nuclear bomb that hits the West Coast. So, you know, we do have a vested interest. INL. I'm sure that if anybody that was going to attack America would certainly want to target the INL.
Well, I believe INL has a lot of stuff we don't even know about to protect INL.
I'm just saying that, you know, we can't ignore it here in Idaho. I mean, that's anytime somebody, was always told that you determine a person's character by their actions in their past, and of course you can't ignore the rhetoric.
Yeah.
You know, you can't ignore the rhetoric.
And Chance brought up a really good point. In Asian culture, if they don't show face, as we would say in Hawaii, show face, then they won't respect them. And so he may have to actually do something, like you were saying, a limited attack. I don't know, maybe a DMZ incursion of some sort.
Yeah.
When I was there, they had incursions all the time.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
small incursions. We used, anyways.
Yeah.
We'll go there.
That island.
Side to that too.
That was,
I'm sorry to interrupt.
No,
He's already done something that no other North Korean leader's done. He's closed Kaesong.
yeah.
He has evacuated the South Koreans across the border, where they were having sort of a semi-symbiotic relationship in a working sort of manner. This is a very aggressive move, and I don't think it should be discounted as a whim or just an emotional moment of outburst of,
Yeah.
display of power. I think he has something really serious in mind in the back of his head.
Well, they were talking about, if I may, they were talking about they may not have the payload for a nuclear on the missiles, but they have the ability to put an EMP on one of those missiles.
Yes.
And if they pop that over Seattle, let's say,
Then our interceptors aren't really going to be functional.
That's correct.
There's an article about the satellite that they had sent up and that is floating around out in space out there, has a payload on it that our intelligence service has not been able to identify.
well, I think we have the lasers that can knock that out of the space. I've seen a
Exactly.
demonstration.
Exactly. So that is one toy that they have up there that, maybe something that they may consider to play with. Who knows?
That's the problem. We all don't know out there.
There's this whole thing is so esoteric, but this whole thing about face is this notion then that whenever we're negotiating with Asian nations that they can't back down because they have to save their face, which is a formula for saying, well, then you're going to have to back down because they can't back down because they can't lose face. And then you get, keep in mind too, now you have new administrations in South Korea and also in Japan.
Hello? Hello? Okay, dokie. We do have a live. Sorry about that, Mike.
The second part of that is that the Oriental concept in Korea and Japan, Korea specifically, North Korea, is this idea of the mandate of heaven. Now, the mandate of heaven is this idea is that if when you're negotiating with somebody, you can extract benefits at their expense, then because you're in a negotiation, and that if you can do that, then you've proven that you're a superior individual, that you're more crafty, that you're more cunning, and therefore that is seen as a kind of a spirit, a deity's a higher spirit has then given you special powers, and that is sort of showing that heaven prefers you over them, and that your rule is mandated by heaven.
Yeah.
That because of your craftiness, that's proof that the heavens wanted you to be the ruler and the dictator over the land because you were craftier than the other guy.
Isn't that a sociopathic type of mentality? I mean, I've learned a lot about
But what I'm
sociopaths
saying is
lately.
you see there's a rationale behind this program of extortion. And now we might just be seeing another version of it, who knows. But now when you're dealing with that, and you have to come up with a policy to deal with that, to me, my way of thinking is you ignore them.
But for how long? Go ahead, Chance.
Well, I was just thinking, as far as Korea goes, in the past, using your example that you said, we have given concessions to North Korea. But for whatever reasons, currently, as far as I know, the U.S. has not offered any concessions, and it seems they've taken a stance that says we're not going to, which has taken North Korea into a position of you got to put up or shut up, and if he shuts up, that's where he's going to lose face. There's no concessions here so far.
So he's taking it to the next level.
Right. And as far as the Middle East goes, time and time again in the past few years, I've seen our country giving military aid and economic aid to nations that either support or are nations of, how should I put it, Islamic terrorists. I just can't see where our thinking is involved in how do we justify this? How do we justify giving tanks and planes to a country that could very well turn it on to Israel, a country that we're supposed to be a friend to?
Or onto ourselves.
Right.
Onto our country.
And as far as the global thing in general, we had a president who set the bar that I believe all of us should be following, and that's James Monroe. let's just take care of our own backyard. Let's not let foreign powers come in and take control of territories that are going to pose a threat. We always talk about national security. Why did we allow the Chinese to take over the Panama Canal? No, there's something that is of military strategic importance. That's a gateway.
Yes.
And then we have Cuba during the Kennedy administration. Why did we let Cuba dictate to us at a point where we had perfect reason for going in and controlling that whole island? Because we were worried about Russia. This is where if you're not going to take a stance and tell other nations, here's the drawing line, we're not going to go past it, then we should just not say anything. We should just keep to ourselves and wait for the missiles to come in our direction and then react instead of being the first responders. Or, if you're going to be aggressive, be aggressive. Don't be the middle of the road, wishy-washy, just let's be diplomatic and try to promote democracy throughout the world thing. I mean, that's very nice if you live in a utopian kind of mentality, but as we can clearly see, there are some nations that will never be democratic like we are, while other nations are friendly towards us, and those are the ones we should do trade with, and those that aren't, we should just isolate by not having any dealings with them whatsoever, unless it is to protect ourselves.
I believe our country has, where am I at? I believe our country has been wishy-washy in all the combat engagements since World War II, and it has cost us thousands of American lives. And like you said, Chance, if we're going to do something, go out there and do it. And I'm with the belief that I won't jump in your backyard. Don't jump in mine. But if you jump in my backyard, I'm going to bite your head off, unless you're invited. And that's the problem. We do these things halfway. I won't use the other part of that, which most of you know what I was going to say.
Well, you know, here's a perfect example. Can you imagine the billions of dollars that we've committed to Iraq, and we didn't even get an oil deal? We were forced to pull our soldiers out of there because there was no standard of agreement on what would happen with troops accused of crimes and what court they would be tried in Iraq. Yeah. But we got no oil deal. Now, when do we get to the point where we can help a country destroy a dictator, give him an opportunity to create a new government, to send our treasures and our fodder there, and we don't even get an oil agreement? Whatever happened to the victors goes to spoils. And that's been the function of every war I've ever can imagine.
Well, that's because
if you're going to help them and give them a second chance, and what do you get out of it? You don't even get an oil deal. It's preposterous. Well, it's absolutely preposterous.
The liberal mind, because there was no arm twisting, no you owe us. Yeah. None of that. It was all that.
When did we get to that point?
Now that we've done our deed for you, have at it, boys.
We're going to leave, and you can kick us in the butt on our way out.
Exactly. And that's where the problem is. You see, everything with the liberal world is the utopian thought. I give you what is happening in Maryland right now. In the school district in Maryland, they want to remove the letter L from the alphabet because it looks like a gun.
People may not believe you, but it's true.
Serious.
What does an F look like?
Perhaps we should remove Idaho because we have that. So
that's next. That's going to be removed from the map. I am serious. Yeah. I swear to the Lord in heaven above. There is a woman who is on a crusade. She is a psychotherapist, and she swears that they are doing damage, irreparable damage to children.
I tell you, Steve, I don't want to take that Rorschach block test that has me trying to identify what each symbol of the alphabet looks like in my wildest imagination. That's going to get me in trouble.
That's exactly what they're going. That's exactly what they're fighting. I tell you, if they do not succeed in fighting this demented person, I mean, because that person definitely has mental problems. If she feels that children are being subverted by the letter L.
You hadn't heard of that, Mike?
No, that's a good one.
That's the best one I've heard in a while.
Oh, yeah. She's working her rear end off, trying to remove the letter L from the alphabet
Is that
system.
an O or a U?
This reminds me of another woman who
I don't think we laugh this much on the show. Sorry.
there was another one who made a lot of noise about prayer in school, and it was probably folks like us laughing about that. Unfortunately,
It worked,
it
didn't
worked
it?
Because we were thinking there's no way
That it could
our
ever happen.
leaders would allow that to happen, but they did because
Yeah.
we're not standing watch. We're not at the gates guarding our nation. We believe that the people that are supposed to represent us are doing the job that they should be doing, but as we see continually, time after time here, they are not.
Well, I think this is a good point to kind of shift gears from North Korea. Korea, go ahead.
Just two quick ones. George Washington said in his first inaugural address, warned us about entangling relationships and getting involved in other people's business. And then TR, Teddy Roosevelt, speak softly and
Carry a big stick.
Yes.
Yes.
So
all you need to know.
where's the Teddy Roosevelt? Is there a Teddy Roosevelt out there? Is there another Ronald Reagan? Is there anyone out there who just wants to say, I am who I am, this is what I believe. You don't like it? Well, move on. Someone that really wants to protect our country, instead of just talking. I meet all kind of people. They want to do this, they want to do that. I guess I'll blurp a little bit here. And it gets me really angry because I say, well, what are you doing? Oh, well, I'm too busy or this. And I say, well, are you too busy to, do something? Oh, I can't. So those of you out there who just want to sit there and do nothing, I have no time for you. If you guys want to do something, do it. But I got a little off track, and we're getting off North Korea now. Well, and we were talking about how the liberal looks at things and their perspective. What about this happened about 4 hours ago, I believe, in a college in Texas. 14 people were stabbed by one individual with some kind of knife or a box cutter. So what are we going to do now? Ban the knives, or let's start registering everybody with a knife? How will that work? Any comments, gentlemen?
Let's start with the box cutter part.
There we go.
It's a tool. We can't even say ban the knives because it would be ban the box cutters. So the box cutter people would have to endure the hardship of trying to figure out another way of opening up their boxes.
Well, FedEx and the post office are out of business, aren't they? Without a box cutter.
What about the guys that stock shelves in the
Yeah, they're
grocery
out of
stores?
business. The grocery stores are out of business.
They'll be out of luck at night, let me tell you.
Well, I think
We know nothing about this guy. Does anybody here or anybody out there really, do they believe that this guy is anything but a whack job?
well, wasn't he carrying a stuffed monkey around or something?
Stuffed
according to
monkey.
the
I mean,
news
I don't even
report?
want to go there with jokes.
I've got a monkey on my back.
Well, this is a fun one. I don't think we've laughed this much. I've said that twice.
I'm not doing monkey jokes.
Let alone stuffed.
I think the principle behind that is you can't control nuts or insane people. And you can't control people who wants to walk in there with a gun or a knife or into a school or anywhere. This gun control is a bunch of hogwash. It's a bunch of hogwash.
That brings up an interesting point. I think we should do background checks on people who are going to use box cutters and buy monkeys.
There you go.
Any-
And that's the guidelines, right? If
anyone
you have a
that's-
monkey or a tarantula, I have a tarantula at home, or any kind of pet for that matter,
Well, I think if
you
you're
need a
21
psychological MMPI.
if you're 21 years old and you're carrying stuffed monkeys on your back, I think it's time for a background check.
To relieve that monkey of
And
his
that
back.
guy's walking around campus in Texas, no less. And so Texans, I'm losing a little respect for them.
Yeah.
Does this go on
Seriously.
a mascot that was a monkey? Is that the deal?
No, according to the news reports, they were indicating that this person had been seen on campuses before, the campus before, and
Nobody
it
thought
wasn't like nobody knew him. There were a lot of students who had seen this individual. I guess he was mid-20s, I believe. I'm not really sure, but then again, newscasts. let's shift gears from the monkey on our backs.
The one that's talking to us in our ear.
I'd like to read something that George Washington said, and we'll get into our paper dollar. George Washington said, "If ever again our nation stumbles upon unfunded paper," geez, like the stuff you got in your pocket, "it shall surely be like death to our politic body. This country will crash." Today we put so much emphasis on our dollar. What is the dollar backed by? There's so many stories out there that Fort Knox is empty, there's no gold. I suggest that and this is my personal, buy precious metals. And I'm not trying to sell any precious metals like the big Glenn Becks and Bill O'Reillys. But the truth is, if the dollar crashes, and it may not. There's both sides of the story on that. If it does, how are you going to go out and buy your milk or buy your ammo? Well, actually, ammo would probably be the trade for bartering. Any comments, guys?
Well, there was this very interesting situation where this 99% group in Portland had put together a very nice petition wanting to open a central bank and run fiat money. Fiat money, can you guess that? Fiat money. You know what fiat money is, don't you? Fiat money is paper that is not backed by anything. Guess when they stopped running gold through our paper system?
It was the 60s,
1973,
73.
when Nixon decided to stop backing our paper with gold. Gee, weren't those 99%ers right on top of it? Oh, smart. These are the guys that are going through college. These are the guys that are going to be running our country one day. Oh, I just can't wait.
You know, the laws of economics are like the laws of gravity, and when I hear some of these so-called intellectuals and economists talking about, oh, it's okay for a country to run a $17 trillion deficit, and you know that $1 billion, that $1 trillion stimulus, the only thing wrong with that is that it wasn't a $3 trillion stimulus, and I read a lot of historical fiction, and the problem with a devalued currency or any kind of crisis, economic crisis, is there's going to be a run on the bank. And if you're not first in line, you're not going to get your money. And of course, that creates the panic. And then, of course, for the government, then, be it the government's going to guarantee your savings or your accounts through the FDIC or whatever, you have a situation where once that run on the bank starts, if you can't get a hold of your money, then you're basically out of luck.
Like Cyprus.
Yeah. And this is not an infrequent thing in American history or even world history. It happens quite often where you have these runs on the bank, and so you have to have some kind of if you're planning for the future and you can't get your money out of the bank, you have to have some backup. And either people prepare ahead or they don't.
Yeah.
So that's the biggest thing. Once the panic and the scare starts, then everything begins to fall. So the real problem with these is, number one, inflation, because you guys are old enough to remember the last 2 years of Carter and the first year of where you're having 3 years of double-digit inflation.
Yes.
The only people making out are those on welfare on a COLA, and then everybody else on a fixed income is just taking a major hit.
Yeah.
So right now we don't have inflation, but we know from the past economic models that if the Federal Reserve Board is pumping $2.5 trillion in, $85 billion every month, and there's a shell game between the Treasury, the Fed, and the banks, where they're all just circulating money, printing it and circulating it, but none of it seems to be hitting Main Street. So we don't have inflation right now. But bar the door Katie, Because if it occurs, there's no way they can keep interest rates below the rate of inflation, which is what they have. It's absolutely, I mean, you can literally borrow money for free these days if you're, you know, connected.
Yeah, that's it.
But,
if you're connected,
you know, we know that inflation's coming because you can't print this much money and not devaluate a currency. And that is the thing and what's scary is that we still have people that think you can solve an easy money policy with more easy money. And it just blows my mind to think that we have this educated group, because the government's primarily run by people from the Ivy League schools. I mean, they've read the same history I've read, and they keep digging the hole deeper.
Well, I think it's all part of a plan.
Well, yeah.
I think it's to destroy our country.
Let's see. That just
I mean,
is.
if you're an educated person, come on, if you're educated, you know what's right and wrong. These people are not stupid. And I think and I shouldn't say stupid, but the foolish people out there, those that are not doing anything to get off their high knees and do whatever they can to educate, like Oath Keeper, and which brings me up a point. Steve just gave me this. I have one of these too. This is 1 ounce or 999,999, whatever it is, proof of silver. I have one just like it. Actually, it has an Oath Keepers. Actually, I hold the position, no big deal, Idaho State Chapter President for Oath Keepers. We give this out to those that want to get one. But the point is, silver. Now, I bet you if the dollar is no longer, and like you talk about inflation, I can go down here with this piece of silver and probably buy a bunch of groceries. Could you do that with a dollar bill? No. Please get out there and do something. I'm sorry. Chance, did you have something to say? I'm sorry.
I'll play the devil's advocate on this one. I know there are those, especially down in Texas, some people that believe the answer is to change the currency. I would question whether even changing the currency would prevent a repeat of what we have today with that so-called new currency. We would just repeat the same mistakes. My feelings that I would submit to you for consideration is that how do you answer the question, how can you change the value of the dollar to be a dollar? And that would be if you had no international market, if all money that was transpiring in transactions between people who had equal mental agreement. I give you $20 for your shirt, you give me the shirt, you take that $20, you go buy some bread, and the people that you're buying the bread from recognize what that is, and so on and so forth. It becomes an issue when you have an international market.
Yeah.
So take a country like UK, Ireland, England, Scotland, and you come to an agreement with them. This is the currency we want to use. These are the things that we would like to trade with you, and vice versa if you're willing. So we recognize you and you recognize us. Is the value good for you? And if they're in a like mind, then you have an agreement, and the value of what it is. It could be quartz, for crying out loud.
Yeah.
You know, we can back our money with a huge ton of quartz, or maybe when we want to use emeralds or rubies or whatever it is.
Pineapples.
It isn't the subject, it isn't the object, it isn't the material, it isn't the precious metal, it is the agreement between people of what is valued and what is not. It becomes an issue when you do international marketing with countries that don't want to agree with you. They want to be assured that the value of what they're getting is going to be of value to them because they're dealing with other countries who don't recognize your currency and its value.
Yeah, they don't have a need for whatever you're backing.
Right. So I'm saying let us do trade with countries that are of like mind and stay away from those morons who aren't.
Well,
Exactly.
let me put these deficits in kind of perspective, because a lot of people just don't have the economic literacy. Is that if you're 20% of every dollar that we send the government in the form of taxes, it goes to servicing the debt. And this is assuming now that we're not borrowing. Of course, that 20% is increasing as long as the deficit increases. So the 20% becomes 21, 22, so on. That means that of the dollar that you send as a taxpayer to the government to fund goods and services, it's only buying 80%. Only 80% of that dollar is actually producing goods and services for the government. Now, if it's a devaluated dollar, that dollar buys even less real goods and services. So you're ending up in a situation where you're paying more and more to the government in the form of taxes, and you're getting less and less back.
So, and maybe I'm a little off here, but I get, with these deficits and stuff, a lot of people out there don't care. And a lot of, and please don't misinterpret this, I get tired because I go to the grocery store a lot, as we all do. And I'm in line, and I believe I've said this before on the show, maybe the other show I once had, that I'm in line and I'm buying some cereal and a gallon of milk and a couple of crackers, and someone's in front of me buying lobster tails and you know, big filet mignon steaks, and out they pull the EBT card. And these people, several, and there's some, I know people out there need help. I mean, I am not knocking that. We all probably needed help one time or another. But when I look at this couple or this guy, and I go, what's wrong with him? How does he have an EBT card? And I'm buying crackers. You know, people in that mindset, and this is my personal opinion, and it's my show, so you don't like it, turn the channel. It's the truth.
There you go.
My personal opinion is, if they can work, put them to work. And also, these people that are on all this assistance, they don't care a rat's patoot about our deficit. As long as they got that check coming in, that EBT card.
Yeah.
Well, I think I can make an argument that says that you're never helping an able-bodied man by paying him not to work.
That's
we
right.
talk about the loss of self-respect. We talk the loss of productivity. To pay somebody unemployment for 99 weeks, or to extend that to 125 or 126, whatever it is, are you really making an argument that you're helping an individual? They learn that they lose that work ethic?
No,
I mean, how
you're
can
not.
a society, what did they say that now the percentage of people actually working in our economy was something like 63% of all able-bodied people are actually working. You can't support a social democracy with an entitlement program and welfare systems when only 63% of the people are working, paying taxes, and being productive, and the other people are sitting back and drawing. I mean, it's all you got to do is read Atlas Shrugged.
Well, this editor of this paper was trying to make a claim that we had to be extremely careful with cutting back on our programs. Otherwise, we were going to be driving people to such thing as crime and, you know, theft and things like that. By taking away these programs. But I ask you, what about these people that just up and quit, looking for work, don't even bother anymore? What was it, the figure for March was 435,000, just said, I ain't gonna look no more. You know, and that is absolutely pathetic. You know,
I'm sure we all, I'm sure you've seen it.